Joining us today on a Signal series conversation is Scott Galloway. Now, he's a professor of marketing at NYU's Stern School of Business, where he teaches brand strategy and digital marketing. But you may know him as a serial entrepreneur, a best-selling author, something of a bomb-throwing commentator and podcaster. Scott, welcome to Signal.
Thanks, John. Good to be with you.
So, Scott, one of the things you definitely have opinions about is the focus of this edition of Signal, which is branding, marketing, and the future of media. So I want to start from the 30,000 foot level. As you look at the industry of media and marketing, what do you think are the biggest trends that are driving change right now?
So that's a big one. So I would say that the things I'm focused on is how, if you think about the advertising industrial complex, I think it's loosely kind of just deflating every year. And that is the traditional algorithm of take a mediocre product, wrap these incredibly strong brand codes around it, pound away at those brand codes using this incredibly inexpensive, efficient vehicle called broadcast media, and then stuff the channel with your mediocre beer, your mediocre soft drink, your mediocre car, but it makes you feel tough, American, European. 45 to 1995, that was really the algorithm for the most successful companies in modern economic history. And then we moved to this more digitally, digital unlocked incredible product quality. Product became more important. Algorithms sitting on top of media. The things I'm focused on are trying to get companies off of transactional businesses into recurring revenue bundles. So whether it's Walmart, or I'm about to go on the board, or I'm potentially going on the board of a QSR company that's doing interesting recurring revenue bundles at Urban Outfitters, where I'm on the board, we're doing a subscription product. I think consumers don't want choice. I think the marketers have made a fundamental error thinking that choice is a good thing. I think consumers want less choice. They just want to be more confident in the choices presented to them. I think we're going to go from one click to zero click, and that similar to the way that TikTok provides an algorithm on top of media that using signal liquidity helps you calibrate into the media you want before you know you want it. I think we're going to end up, and what I'm sort of excited about, potentially the Walmart TikTok deal, which I probably think doesn't go through, but if it does, the opportunity is to bring the same sort of algorithms to media to commerce and move to sort of this giant bundle. We'll go category by category. We'll go grocery, then we'll go to house or cleaning products, and then we'll go to the other stuff. But I think where we're headed is one or a series of providers use algorithms to figure out what you want before you want it, and it just shows up on your doorstep.
So what's the role of brand in all of that, Scott? I mean, if the algorithms are figuring out what you want, what does the brand do?
If you look at the S&P 500, the 10 biggest companies, or the upper decile, the 50 biggest companies are up 10%. The ones in the middle are flat, and the ones at the very bottom are down. There's been a consolidation. Size, scale matters. And I think the same thing is happening with brands. I think we're going to consolidate to a few kind of mega brands. There'll be these mega brands that kind of control aspects of our life. iOS or Android will control our technology. And then we'll have, Walmart or Amazon kind of controlling our commerce. And then we'll have some niche brands that are aspirational or self-expressive at the aspirational end. But I think we're going to see, just as we've seen 50% of the stocks go away in the last 20 or 30 years, I think we're going to see a third of the brands go away or become irrelevant. I just don't think people are opting out of the advertising industrial complex. I think they want to defer to one or two very trusted brands by category. And there'll be always opportunity for niche, upstart, fighting brands to come in and challenge. But I think we're going to consolidate kind of up to bigger kind of what I'll call mega brands. So I see the advertising industrial complex as largely collapsing, and we're moving to a smaller and smaller number of brands, just the way it seems that the marketplace is consolidating around the biggest companies with the most scale. And you'll have the upstarts that'll do cool stuff, but I think we're moving to a consolidation phase.
So when you in that kind of a landscape, what advice do you have to the current brand leaders who basically have gotten market dominance, through broadcast and are now looking at this field, and they obviously want to cross the chasm, and they want to, be one of those dominant brands. How do they do it?
I think we're moving out of the brand era into what loosely you would call the innovation era, where digital unlocks real product differentiation that wasn't available. Kind of product quality seemed to sort of top out from kind of 75 to 95. And then all of a sudden, digital unlocked just a ton of different opportunities for true product differentiation. So I think you're seeing a reallocation out of traditional media budgets into what you call more innovation. And that is, brands are still important, but the investments are more around things like supply chain and leveraging new mediums that are more about organic reach or what have you. Or, probably the best brand investment of the last 20 years has been Amazon's investment in fulfillment. Amazon has invested more in fulfillment in the last 2 years than Walmart's invested in the last 20 years. Brand's sort of an amorphous term. It's basically, how do we create a signal that's shorthand to trusting our products such that we don't feel like we're making a choice. It's kind of an IQ test. Netflix has not spent any money on branding. They've ported just a massive amount of capital, cheap capital, and other than Amazon, they've used capital to develop this kind of IQ test. So I think if you're a brand manager, I think you're thinking more about, for lack of a better term, innovation. I think P&G does a good job of this, but yeah, it's sort of the brand era. The sun has passed midday on brand, and I think it's more about quote unquote product innovation that's unlocked through digital, if you will.
Now, I mean, you referenced the sort of the platform winners, Amazon, specifically Netflix is another one. You've written and you've commented on these companies extensively. And one of the things I find interesting is that while on the one hand, you're almost in awe of them and their power, on the other hand, you don't seem super pleased with them. Both those true things are true. Do you square them, or is it just, is the era of these mega tech platforms, are they infallible, or do you think they might give way at some point to some other system or structure or set of competitors?
The only absolute is everything eventually ends. And at some point, Facebook and Google and Amazon will be unseated. The question is what happens between now and then?
Uh-huh.
And I don't think we should take comfort from knowing that at some point there'll be an innovator that disrupts them. We have a proud legacy of antitrust in this country. When one company begins to suck the oxygen out of the room, and small companies are prematurely, they have infanticide performed on them, and great big companies, which tend to be better taxpayers and better employers, are prematurely euthanized. We go in and we break them up. And for some reason, we have not done that with big tech. I owe these companies. I like them. I'm tremendously respectful of them. We should absolutely break them up. We have a tendency in our species to either think of something as all good or all bad. Binary is the best way to process information. So we look at big tech and we go, is it good or is it bad? Are we net gainers or net losers? And the problem is the word net. I think we're net gainers from big tech. I think if we could press a button and make these companies go away, we would choose not to press that button. Every other country in the world would pray for our problems and invite those companies to headquarter in their domains. Should we break their ass up? 100%, yes.
Yeah, interesting. So when you think about that competitive landscape of where new innovators might come to change the ecosystem, my mind goes to media, which is the subject of this edition of Signal, and I think about all of these new streaming services that have come online in the last year or so, all of which to the outside observer seem like reactions to Netflix. Whether it's I guess it's Paramount Plus, HBO Max, Disney Plus, and so on and so forth. How do you break down that landscape versus the pure plays like Netflix?
So the streaming wars are really unusual or interesting in the sense that Hollywood, if you think about what we're really good at as a nation, we're really great at making weapons. We're really good at making software. We have the best universities in the world, and we have the best media in the world. And the entire media landscape, to a certain extent, at least original scripted television or Hollywood, it's in the midst of being featureized. Now, what do I mean by that? This used to be an incredible multi-hundred-billion-dollar enterprise standalone business that was profitable and sustainable in its own right. And now the majority of the incremental investment is being used to differentiate paper towels or a handset. And that is the numbers 2 through 4 biggest spenders now in original scripted television aren't there to build media businesses. They're there to increase the NPS scores of Amazon Prime or your handheld. And so to think that an industry as big as and important as media has kind of become a feature and no longer the business itself. The only traditional media company that's really counterpunched in the same way that Walmart is the only retailer that's counterpunched, I think, effectively against Amazon is Disney. And that took the greatest content library ever, one of the most respected business leaders, incredibly strong capital position to say, all right, we have the backbone and the pockets to pull our content off of all these third parties and take a huge hit to earnings. And then they had The Mandalorian, they had The Hook, and Disney Plus came out, and they've crossed the chasm. And most media companies are just never going to get there. Time Warner can't get there. Comcast has an activist in there now because they're trying to do this Goldilocks, some advertising, no advertising. Consumers don't want to figure that shit out. They're like Netflix, $12.99. It's not a consumer offering, it's an IQ test. And that's what these things are becoming. If you don't have Amazon Prime, it means you don't have a credit card. If you don't have Netflix, it means you don't have a TV. It's just these bundles have become so powerful. And then you have the traditional media companies coming in. HBO, Jesus Christ, can you believe that shit? HBO Max, HBO Economy Comfort, Diet HBO. I mean, what do all of these things mean? They are so ridiculous. Anyways, I think the traditional players, other than Disney, are really going to struggle and will probably be broken up.
You've already mentioned that, P&G, which is, the underwriter of this platform. What advice do you have for, a large CPG company, given all that we've just discussed? Invest more in product differentiation, create subscription relationships with the customers that may not exist today. Are there other advice? Am I headed in the right direction there?
Yeah, I think you kind of stole my thunder, I would say. And I've been talking about this for a long time. I worked very closely with P&G for a long time and was always trying to move them towards some sort of a bundle. I think experimenting with controlled distribution. I don't see why it's any more of a reach that the product categories that P&G is really strong in, whether it's baby or I don't even know the terms anymore, laundry or whatever, why that would be any more unusual to go vertical and have sort of niche specialty retail than if you'd said 30 years ago, LVMH is going to go vertical in beauty and try and disrupt the beauty counter at Macy's. I think the place you buy these products is so non-aspirational or so intent on starching the margin from your products that a big investment in vertical distribution would be a worthwhile experiment. But I always say about P&G, there's nothing wrong with P&G that can't be fixed with what's right with it. It's a great firm, great people. Go P&G.
Scott Galloway, thank you so much for being part of a Signal conversation. Look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks, John.